Hi guys, welcome to the channel, uh, Conversations with Shelly. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, welcome. And for those of you who have been here with me for some weeks now, welcome back. So, I would have been doing um, a lot of GLP-1 update on my journey on Mounjaro to compound Tirzepatide. And I've been doing this for 12 weeks. And my last video or my last episode on my GLP-1 journey had to do with my 12-week review or my 3 months on either the branded version Mounjaro or the component version Tirzepatide. No, I wanted to do this week a little bit different because this week I would have now completely shuttled outside of the 12 weeks, 3 months review, and I'm now into a new phase of the journey in week 13. Now, this would have been, oh gosh, I left my Triceptide journal. Anyway, so this would have now been, let us say, the 5th week on the compound version, but in total, I would have done 13 weeks on both the branded version Mounjaro and the compounded version. So you can do the math and minus the 5 from the 13, and then you'll see how long I was actually on the branded version for. And we went through the reason why I decided to shift from the branded version to the compounded version. We went through that. There's a video for that, right? But this week I wanted to look on what has happened in week 13 for me across the board, not only just about the journey itself and the glucose levels and the weight loss um, journey, but also to look at side effects, if any, what has been also happening in the news in relation to GLP-1. Of course, I'm going to give you a little random ramble that I suddenly came across in the space, or not in the space, but from somebody that I'm not going to call the name of the person because, of course, you know. But for those of you who know, you will know. And I will just give a general comment on that, a very social comment on that. Guys, I'm looking at my notes, by the way. So I will also give you an update on what my ordering process was for my reorder of my medication using a new telehealth pharmacy, what my experience have been thus far. Or you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave that for a separate video because I don't want to miss the finer details because they say that the devil is in the detail. I don't know why they said the devil is in the detail. Anyway, right. And also I will just give you an update as to what is happening overall for 2026 and just to give you a call to action in terms of what I think should be on your your resolution, you know, mandate or something that you want to do for the new year. Certainly, I will give you that, right? So let us start first of all with, and as I said, guys, I had on here that I would have started with the process and comparison between my previous telehealth pharmacy and my now assigned or the one that I've now moved over to. But I'm going to leave that for now. I'll do a video separate on that. And that just came to me just now because I realized that there are details that I don't want to miss. And I want to ensure that I am doing justice to both of these telehealth pharmacies. And as I always tell you, the intent for me, going through my journey is to be as honest and as transparent as I can without, being biased towards any one telehealth or any one entity, right? So let me just start then, since I'm going to do a video separately on that, let me just start with my weekly update, which would include my current weight, where I started, and also my side effects and anything new that has happened. So if you know, I started my GLP-1 journey on August 18 of this year, 2025, and my starting weight at the time, which I call my SW, was 215.8. I often, when I say that number, persons say, oh no, those who know me, right, they would often say, you at no point in time you look like 215 pounds. And guys, this is why I always say comparison is a thief of joy, because I never compare myself to other persons, and I implore you to also try not to do the same, because my 215 pounds did not look like somebody else's 215 pounds. And so when I say that I used to weigh 215 pounds, persons say, it's a lie. You couldn't weigh 215 pounds. And da, 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 da. But remember, there is also height that is involved in how your weight is distributed. There is also body mass that accounts for a lot of that weight. Now, I'm very tight in terms of I don't have loose skin. I'm very compact, so I will carry a heavier weight than somebody else who may have, a little bit more of, the moving parts. I don't know how else to say that, save and except for how I just did. So hopefully you understood. Right. So I started at 215. 12 weeks later, I am now at 165. And that to me, guys, is one of the blessings about GLP-1s, and why my random ramble for this particular topic is going to be very much deliberate based on what I've seen from a particular individual, right? Um, so you can just imagine that a lot of persons want to see this GLP-1 injectable or medication or treatment as a magic jab. And other persons in the space tend to speak of it as if it's something that we should not have done, or we should have tried a little harder and not just give in to the science of it all. And one of the things that I want to remind us about is that for a lot of persons, that gain weight so easily, it's not about whether it is something that you can control. For some persons, their metabolism is not as easy to lose weight as others. There's also the consideration of hormones that are in play. You know, persons have different hormone imbalances or different conditions that makes it that much more difficult for them to lose weight. And I can tell you, as one of those persons, also we have to get to a point in our understanding of weight loss and understanding obesity for what it is. And there has been many, international and regional forums that speak about obesity, to the point that by now we should be able to now see and understand it to be a disease that is not only a standalone disease by itself, but is also a disease that contributes to other life-changing and life-threatening diseases, right? Guys, I think I'm losing battery power, so let me just grab the charger here, right? So that is something that for certain we want to ensure that we allow the space to understand it when it comes to obesity and how it should be treated. So started with 215 as of now, um, December 9th, 165. So I've lost a total of 45 pounds, give and take, right? And as I said, that's an awesome thing in and of itself. And without this medication, I don't think it would have been possible. And we would have spoken about the science and how it is actually done, how it actually allows your body to lose this weight. Now, guys, this for me is not just about weight loss. Now, if you know my story, and I would have mentioned it in one of my videos, I also have a health condition that is very much depending on this medication, which is I'm type 2 diabetic. So over time, not only have I dropped 45 plus pounds, but I've also had reduced blood glucose levels that were ranging with A1C of 6.7 to now I'm at a 5.2, 5.4. So that's awesome. I have a schedule profile blood work due for the new year. So that's where I'm at in terms of numbers. Now I know I don't do the standard measurements of neck, arms, legs, waist. I don't have those updates to give you in terms of actual inches lost, but I can tell you there are indeed non-scale victories that I may not have seen on the scale to tell you of a number, but I can guarantee there are non-scale victories that I am very much aware of, and they're not lost on me. I can see it in my face. I can see it in how my clothes now fit. I can see it in the loose clothes that I now have to contend with because I'm not complete with my journey. And it is a waste of money and resources to be investing in clothes at this particular point in time, which is something that I hope you also understand if you decide to go on a journey like this, right? So that being said, um, let me just take you into what my social comment is. And I want to make this a very real one. I don't want to joke about it, but you don't know. You don't know something about me about into a joke, right? So again, judging by my accent, you know I am Jamaican. I am of Jamaican heritage, parents, and all the works. And I'm very connected to my country, very connected to my roots, regardless of where I am. Now, I was browsing through social media, something that I don't do a lot because I do limit my social media digest to at least, you know, 2 hours per day. I try not to go beyond that. But in my one of my many social media searches or, time, I came across another Jamaican who is well known in the space, well known not in the GLP-1 community, but well known in the space of media personalities. And I was surprised at her weight loss, um, how quick it happened. And because I have the knowledge of GLP-1, I knew that this was, of course, assisted weight loss. But what was hurtful to me and what should be hurtful to the GLP-1 community. And while I understand privacy and nobody should be forced to be outed, yeah, um, I don't I don't cater to anything that is disingenuous. I don't cater to anything that is um I don't know how to say this without being offensive to the individual, because I hopefully it's not too obvious who I'm speaking about. But I don't like disingenuous persons. And I do believe that if something is working for you, while I can appreciate privacy and the need to maintain your own private information and choosing your own timing to say, do not pretend as if what you're doing is by virtue of, standard processes. So this particular individual who less than a month, month and a half, 2 months the most, I saw within the space. Now this is mainstream media. And this particular individual was of a solid weight, reasonably weighted. And 2 months later on social media, screaming about her weight loss and making it appear as if she's not assisted. Now, I know all too well that there is no way, and I'm not asking, I'm telling, there's no way that that weight loss could have happened within a space of a month and a half, 2 months, the way that it has shown on her. And the mere fact that everybody kept commenting and saying, what did you do? How did this happen? Tell us about it. Give us some information. And this individual pretended as if this is the gym. This is me dieting. This is me doing the right thing. This is not me doing something, easy. And it, guys, let me tell you something. It's people business. I really shouldn't care. But there are some times when you need to give Caesar what is Caesar's. And I do believe that a medication like this that can help so many others. And sometimes persons are really looking out to glean from your experience so that they can also benefit and they can also move beyond the point of fear in order to take the leap. And when we, as persons who are on the medication, keep it a secret and don't want to speak about the goodness of the medication, it's offensive to me. And it's offensive to others that are like-minded. No, I'm not going to say it's offensive to everybody in the GLP-1 community, but I can speak for myself and persons that are like-minded. It is very offensive for you to be on a medication knowing all too well that you are taking the injections and pretending as if you are out there eating and dieting and exercising and gymming and doing and doing and doing, and you're not assisted and you're not doing this the easy way. That is the disingenuous thing that upsets me. Now, for you, Miss, who is busy on social media pretending as if you're not along that road, I'm going to ask you kindly, consider. You may not want to consider it now because, of course, you may see this and you may hear me ranting and you may think, who is she? I am nobody. But I have enough courage and enough sense of self to can stand for, it's not 4 foot we have, Lord Jesus. Guys, I can stand, I need to be serious. I can stand on my 2 feet and I can boldly admit and accept that I'm on a GLP-1. And whether I was on it for diabetic reasons or purposes or for weight loss, I would have done the same because there's no shame. There's no shame to doing something that is going to save your life. No, worse if it's not illegal or criminal. No, guys. I don't understand the secrecy. I don't understand. And for those of you who understand it, I'm always here and willing to want to learn. If you understand from a different point of view why someone will want to hide or pretend and to be, as I said, disingenuous, please help me to understand it. But certainly from this place that I am now standing and from this vantage point, there is no rational rhyme or reason as to why someone who is being assisted in such an awesome way will pretend, and that is what I have a problem with. If you don't say nothing, you don't say nothing, nobody can draw it out of you. Nobody can draw it out of you. Right? So, if for whatever reason you don't choose to say anything, it's your business. Take a shot, take a medication, sit in a corner. But don't take the shot and take the medication and come in a public domain and omit, because sometimes they think by virtue of omission I'm not lying. Listen, by virtue of omission you are lying. By virtue of omission you're pretending. By virtue of omission you're being disingenuous. So for that young lady who has decided to pretend as if GLP-1 is not what she's taking, please do yourself a favor. You will look more authentic and people will accept it more because you're really not fooling anybody when you take the stance of, fooling the crowd, because somebody will out you at some point in time. And for your own peace of mind, it only makes sense to just, as I said, give to Caesar what is Caesar. Yeah? Now, I can understand, and persons will say, but Oprah did the same thing. She's in public. She's on, national, local, regional television, as is, I presume, the person who I'm referencing. But the difference with Oprah, and I don't excuse it either. Listen, I don't excuse it either. But the variation for me happened between the two individuals that I'm making reference to is that Oprah had a larger audience, and by affixing or affiliating herself with any one entity within this GLP-1 community would have tipped the scales against one distributor or one manufacturer over another. Now, as a astute businesswoman that she is, it would not be right, in my mind, at very least, for Oprah to affiliate herself by coming out and saying, "Oh, I am with this telehealth, I'm with this GLP provider." So I can understand the slowness within which she approached, coming out. Yeah. But the individual that I'm speaking of doesn't have that platform, doesn't have that greater platform, nor will it impact the manufacturers and the distributors of the drug in the way that it could have impacted them if Oprah had come out from day one and said, "Hey, listen, I'm on a GLP-1, deal with it." So that is the grace that I'm going to give to Oprah versus this particular individual, right? And that is my random ramble for this week. And in just to say, if you are on this medication, there's no shame in it. And it makes no sense to fool the crowd, because let me tell you something. For those of us within the community who know, we know. So there's no sense, there's no point. And eventually people are going to know too, because people are going to want to do the same things that you are telling them that you're doing, and they're not going to get the same results. And that is when you're going to look really bad, because by then they're going to turn around and say, "I don't know how she did say, I did share, do I'm here to do the same thing." And then, how are you going to feel then? Leading people down a rabbit hole, miss. That's all I'm going to say for that. So, did my random ramble. Let us talk about what happened in the news this week in the GLP-1 space. So the WHO, which is the World Health Organization as we know it to be, recently recommended that GLP-1s be promoted for obesity on a different level. Now, when you have the World Health Organization telling you the space, telling the world that it is time for you to consider GLP-1 as something that is a monumental change to people's health, that is an awesome thing. Yeah? Because it is now telling you that this medication or these medication need to be a part of a broader lifestyle approach. And doctors, providers, persons who are taking care of your health need to encourage the use of these medications so that insurance providers or insurance companies can now start to issue these drugs under their policies. And by virtue of doing that, we can now further see lower costs for these drugs so that, again, outside of diabetes, these drugs can be a part of a plan that employers can issue to their employees without you having to pay out of pocket just to assist you with this chronic and progressive disease called obesity. So I applaud the World Health Organization this week for recommending the use of GLP-1s for obesity, because then we are now seeing the move in the right direction within the space. Yeah, so kudos to WHO for that. Another release in terms of GLP-1 is the new oral GLP-1 of Prawn. I may not be pronouncing that properly, but just bear in mind and understand that this is now a oral version of Tirzepatide and semaglutide that is now being in trial and slated for FDA approval for 2026. Now, what this is doing is offering a non-injectable form of taking a GLP-1 that for many of us who may have had issues with the injectables and the needles will now have a way of getting assistance outside of this fear factor. So that I'm very excited about, that, there are considerations being made for all, persons within the community, within the obesity space, within the diabetic space, that would have otherwise not, um, you know, consider these medications because of how they are formulated. Now, the third thing that happened this week in the GLP-1 community is the global alert that came out within the space about the counterfeit GLP-1 Ozempic. Now, this was alarming for me when I heard it yesterday because these drugs are already under so much scrutiny as is. And to know that we now have an additional um, thing to deal with, regarding something being counterfeit is, of course, going to be of concern for us within the space because there are no additional dangers to consider. You know, not only were persons talking about the side effects and all of these things, but now you have this additional component to deal with in terms of the counterfeit, that has been registered with certain batches. I don't recall the getting the batch number, but it's there in the space for you to take note of. But these were found in legitimate supply chains, meaning they were not just found counterfeit in some little corner um, store or corner pharmacy. These were actually found in legitimate supply chains in the UK, US, and Brazil. So it is important for you to be aware of the batch numbers and all these things that you're taking with your medication and ensuring that you do. I've always said, do your due diligence, keep your eyes and your ears to the ground and within the community and within the space to ensure that what you're putting into your body is indeed what has been FDA approved and regulated. Now, what has happened since is that the um the FDA did a mass seizure of these counterfeit Ozempic GLP-1 solutions because what has happened is that the ingredients that they found within these counterfeit Ozempic is not Tirzepatide as we know them to be or semaglutide, but the dangerous ingredient, dangerous in the sense that it is not um, intended to be in these medications, is the fact that they were found to have insulin within them. And what this does, instead of regulating the insulin that is already in your system by the GLP-1, it causes us to, for those of who would have taken the counterfeit Ozempic, it would have caused them to have lower blood sugar levels, or what is in the medical community being hypoglycemia, right? If it is used incorrectly, as it was found in the counterfeit version. So, those are the three things that would have happened since this week within the GLP-1 space. So, how can we be safe in 2026 if you're considering going on a GLP-1? So some of the things that I made note of, for 2026, and um, I highly recommend, guys, highly recommend, not a doctor in any shape, way, or form, but as a user of GLP-1, proudly a user of GLP-1, I would highly recommend that you do some of the following things that I'm going to mention. So first and foremost, I recommend that you get a valid prescription. I also recommend that you utilize a licensed pharmacy to ensure that if you are going to get your branded versions, then you go through the regulatory framework that is indicating what licensed pharmacies are and the codes that go with them. I will also recommend and implore that you look at your package when you get them, inspect them for any errors, put them into a AI, app and research the batch numbers just to see if there are any errors or inaccuracy or anything that is indicating to you that these batches are not a part of the FDA regulated batch for consumption. Also, if you notice any of that, then I recommend reporting this as well to the FDA and regulators of it. Always, always, always in your GLP-1 consideration or in your GLP-1 experience, always ensure that you engage in proper storage because these medications are known to have sensitivity to temperature variations, and you want to ensure that you're adhering to the regulatory guidance as to how these should be stored in order to maintain efficacy and effectiveness, and also sterilizations, right? So those things are very important. Now, 2026 and what I am recommending. As part of your 2026, vision, resolution, life-changing things, a new year always see us wanting to do something different, wanting to do something new, wanting to make some changes. I would highly recommend And I'm a little bit disappointed in myself that I didn't started January of 2025. But I started, and that is what is important. So while I started way down in the end of the year, as I said, I started August 18, 2025. I'm very happy that I did. And I would highly recommend that if you are obese by the international standard of obesity, you know, the BMIs and all of that, or if you are suffering from a diabetic condition or any PCOS condition or any of the conditions that make you eligible for this medication, please have a conversation sometime right about now with your primary healthcare provider, your doctors. Do your blood work and get on a program. You'll be very happy that you did, and you will thank yourself for taking not just your life into your hands, but also for taking and for betting on you, right? So my recommendation is part of your resolution for 2026. Put on there GLP-1. Envision it for yourself, lock it into your subconscious, and allow yourself to make that change that will drive the rest of your life in a very positive and healthy way. And as always, if you have any questions about how to go about doing it, I will be more than happy to assist in any way that I can. But certainly do your research, understand what the medication is intended to do for you, and look at all of the things that can create a stall, an impediment, a delay, anything that can, impede your success. Look at all those things, consider them so that you can tackle them ahead of time, to include, side effects. I've spoken about that in one of the videos. Budget-wise, I've spoken about that. Sourcing your medications through any telehealth pharmacy, deciding whether you want to do a branded version or a compounded version. Look into all of the things that are there to inform you and to allow you to make informed decisions. As always, I will ask you to consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and turning on your notification bells for whenever I do one of these GLP-1 journey updates. Thank you as always for being here and for supporting this channel to grow. I will see you next time on the next episode, where I will be giving you my review of my compound pharmacy change, what that experience was for me, moving from one compound pharmacy to another. As always, guys, take care and be kind.